Good day. Welcome to our sessions on how to create wealth on a sustainable basis and hopefully set you on the course of becoming a millionaire, joining my Millionaires Club. My topic today is where to invest your money. And for this and probably the following session, we are not talking about setting up a business. That will come on. We are talking about the ordinary person, wage earner, or a small-scale entrepreneur who earns maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, cedis a month. In other words, what do you do to be able to save systematically? In so doing, let me give some general guidelines as to the balance you should be looking at. Often, if you're a pensioner, of course, you want to look at income. But ordinarily, you want to look at the rate of return on the investment. You don't want it to be below inflation or speculative and blow it because you are falling prey to some sort of con men and women. So the rate of return, the amount you want to invest, we have suggested that it should not be less than 10% of your income. And as you progress, you can increase that 10% and top it up every now and then when you get a bonus or what the economists will call windfall gain, unexpected realization of some lump sum here or there. You can boost it with them. So where do you place them? I want to spend much of today on what I call financial instruments. In other words, you are not going to build a house, real estate, or set up a company, but you are going to invest in, say, T-bills, mutual funds, whereby you get a return periodically. We would then later on look at how you can invest in existing companies by buying shares or teaming up with somebody to set up your business but not managing it yourself. Then we will move on to real entrepreneurship, setting up a business of your own. You may start very small, but the sky is the limit. Then we will have time to look at the importance of protecting your investments. Because if you are not careful, the accounts have a saying, in other words, we are going to make a kill and have something to eat. Always go with, oh, why did I make this move? So we will look at that. I am not an expert on cryptocurrency, but towards the end, we will have some discussion because it's an area which is gaining some traction of late. And I would largely warn that be very careful because people are really making some money, so-called big, but others also have lost their shit. And hopefully, at the end of all your investments, you invest in eternity. For what shall it profit a man if they were to gain even the whole world, which is impossible anyway, and lose their own souls? So today I'm focusing on financial instruments. Of course, the first area which I know many people have been working, especially small people in the marketplace, some workers, is susu, whereby people come around and every month you put in, every day, in the marketplace, 5 cedis, and then there are sometimes they get some 10 people get together, and then they say, look, every month we are putting aside 250 for everyone, and then you get a lump sum and can do something with it. It's quite a traditional way of accumulating. But remember, accumulating savings is not investment. So if you are in the Susu club, as you accumulate your money, make sure that you transfer that money to an investment channel, some of which I'm coming to share with you. So the Susu is a very traditional way of gathering some sort of significant amount of money. But remember, when you do it, you get the money, and then, of course, as many people do, they have pre-planned how they will splash it in advance. You are not investing. You are only increasing your savings for a time, and if you blow it, you come to square one. Interestingly, one of the people who work with me apparently has been doing Susu with about 4 friends, contributing 500 rather, each month, and it is his turn, so he's going to get 2,000, which is an additional money. I wish he would use it and direct it into investment. Again, a very popular one, if you have the avenue, is the credit union. I like credit unions because they encourage people to form a savings habit. They also pay interest of it, albeit not too high. But I always recommend my staff to join. We joined the University of Ghana Credit Union. But as an emergency fund, which we will talk more about it in future. In other words, it becomes a quick source of money. You can borrow a little bit from it when you lose your mom, your fridge packs up in the middle of the month, something like that. So, but for a long-term investment, the credit union is not likely to give you adequate return, but it serves a good purpose. I've never joined a credit union, not because of that. No, let me change my mind. I've not joined a credit union in Ghana because there has not been a need for it. But I'm a member, and still I'm a member of the United Nations Federal Credit Union, which is basically one of the biggest financial institutions which all UN staff members belong, and we are paid. And even when you retire, you continue to be a member if you choose so to. I found the credit union, their rates of returns are not that high, but very useful because quickly you can get money in times of emergency. But don't keep too much money there, because the return is not good enough for you to accumulate wealth in a big way, as the Ghanaians will say, nyafu nyafu. Interestingly, I dismiss current account and savings account outright, but in your commercial bank, where you have your current account and your savings account, you can always go for a fixed deposit over time. Once you have 1,000 cedis and above, and you don't need it for some time, you can go and negotiate with your bank manager and have a fixed deposit. In fact, my extended family have an arrangement with our local rural bank so that we will have such a fixed deposit, which then they will use it for family members to have access to microfinance as a guarantee, so that we win in both ways. Of course, the bank wins because they give us interest, which will definitely be below what we could get from the treasury bills, but the individual members don't need to go and look for collateral, and they can also borrow at a very secured rate because it is cash backed. But fixed deposit for 3 months, 6 months, a year would always give you not less than 100% above the savings rate. Please go and negotiate with your bank, and the bigger the money, the higher the return they are willing to give you. If you have a small business, you have extra money, you may not need it for 6 months. There's the equivalent of it. You go for a call account whereby you negotiate a better rate, but then anytime you need the money, you can go and get it. Don't let your money lie in current account and in a savings account to work for the bank. Let the bank work for you by putting it in fixed deposit or a call account. And by rule of thumb, if they don't give you twice the savings rate, don't mention. As my daughter who says, when she thinks the daddy is talking too much, she says, "Daddy, don't mention." So please, that will be my rule of thumb. The fixed deposit also depend upon where you are in the jurisdiction. It's called, certificate of deposit, CDs, and it's about the same. In our certain period, they agree on an interest rate, and then you have it for that period. Many people do not know that even in Ghana, you can buy what we call corporate bonds. We are used to the government bonds, and because of the haircut, as soon as you mention a bond, people will, "Hey, Charlie, now that we have had a haircut, we don't want a head cut. Please take it easy." In financial matters, always keep your cool. But the companies like Unilever, the big companies, sometimes when they want money, they issue their own bonds. And you can go to your broker, and oftentimes, if you have a little bit amount of money, you can then buy the corporate bonds. They are relatively safe so far. I don't hear of defaults, and it's been on for decades, and you can lend to them. And often you get something that is very close to the treasury bills. So oftentimes when you go to a broker, they won't charge you for it. They will charge those who are raising the funds, and you can place. It's like buying treasury bills, but not from the government, from the big companies, and they all go on every now and then. So don't discount corporate bonds. But that, if you are going to have 10 CDs, 20 CDs, 100 CDs, that is not where you go. It is those who have a little bit of accumulation, that is where they want to go. The government side is what we call normally when people talk about bonds, they are talking about time-bound borrowing of the government for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's what was caught up in the domestic debt exchange. Both individuals as well as mutual fund and banks buy government bonds. Treasury bills are only short-term ones, but the bonds can be 5 years, can be 10 years, can be 15 years, and even more. Now, let me stick my head out and say that, the accounts again say that nsuo fa ba na unya nsuo num. When your child gets drowned in a river, you don't stop drinking water. What happened under the debt crisis resulting in the domestic debt exchange program is a once-in-a-century phenomena. They don't occur that often, and I hope this will be the first and the last in Ghana. Generally, government bonds are the most secure forms of investment. What happened is an aberration. And soon I expect that the government will come back on the market and issue long-term bonds. They tend to be relatively safe, and the rate of return tends to be quite good. And if you have money and you don't need it within a short period, you can consider government bonds when they come up on the market again. But it's unfortunate that what has happened has really shaken the confidence of many people in buying government bonds. But government bonds remain one of generally the safest form of investment. What has happened in the last few years notwithstanding, as a financial instrument, I highly recommend it. I would like to also mention that at this moment, the one in vogue is the treasury bills. And they come in 90 days, 180 days, 91 days, 180 days, and 365 days. As a short-term financial instrument management, it's one of the good ways to invest your money. And all that you need is only 100 Ghana cedis at a time. I'm sure I didn't check the latest, maybe they have adjusted it to 1,000, but small amount. And you don't have to go and chase the government, though. You just go to your rural bank, you go to your commercial bank, and they will just place it. And they don't charge you even for it. Please, if you are doing it as an investment, not as a source of income as a retiree, be very careful. The tendency is when you go, you are given one of two options. One is that you take the interest upfront, so that at the end of the period, you get the same amount of money as the one you put aside. Let me give an example. If I have a million cedis and I go to my commercial bank, say, can you purchase for me 1 million treasury bills? And if the rate is 15%, the good banker will ask you, do you want to take your interest upfront, which they may give you a little bit less than the 15%? And therefore, actually, even though you are going to get 1 million at the end of it, the actual investment you may make will be probably within 850,000 and 850,000 to maybe 870,000. Then at the end of the period, you get your 1 million because you have chopped your eggs, your interest in advance. On the other hand, you would say, no, let it be there. At the end of it, I will get my 1 million plus my 15%, which is 150,000, making a lump sum of 1,150,000. If you are doing the type of investment I'm talking about, you must do the latter. Don't take your interest up front. Add it at the end. And then roll it over. Roll over. In other words, if you have the 1 million, and at the end of the year we get 1,150,000, you then reinvest it. The bank, by instructing them, will reinvest it, all the 1,150,000 over the period. As a result, it will then be compounding. That is the time the power of compound interest works for you. So this is how, if you want to do a long-term investment and you want to use a treasury bill, you must always be rolling over both the principal and the interest. Then very soon, you will be, as my friend Kisanga, a colleague of mine from Tanzania, we were working together at the Commonwealth Secretariat in London, will say, you go to the bank laughing in a few years down the way. So treasury bills is a very good mix and part of a portfolio or your various kinds of investment, I will always add treasury bill. And the advantage of a treasury bill is the fact that you can almost ask for your money, and I hope you don't, because you want to accumulate it for 10, 15, or 20 years, anytime, except that they will penalize you by clawing back the unearned interest at a little fee. So that's, even the bond, you cannot go to the government if you buy a 5-year bond, but there's a bond market. In other words, if you go to the stock market, other people who have bought their bonds and they want to sell it. So it is also very good for you. The other is, I'm not going to go into pensions. Actually, I will spend some time on investing specifically for pensions, and let me make sure that I note it down so that I don't shortchange you and break a promise, because if you're at my age, you have the right to forget. But what I'm saying is that pensions, when you are employed, actually it's compulsory to contribute to Social Security. But here I'm talking about Tier 3 pension. I found it one of the best media to invest in. Why? Because when you invest in Tier 3 pension, the government does not tax you on that. In other words, the amount of money coming from your salary is not taxable. So if your tax rate, they charge you about 15%, it means that the day you put 100 Ghana cedis there, you have already gotten more than 15%. So that is a very good vehicle. In fact, if you haven't exhausted your Tier 3, don't go in for the government bonds and the rest, because this is almost the best return. And of course, the people will invest it in addition. The only caveat is that you have to invest it and sustain it, leave your money for more than 10 years. If you go for your money less than 10 years, the government rightly will take 15% as the tax you didn't pay. And that's an average. But even then, if you are a high income person who already has 30% marginal tax, then definitely, even if the government takes 15% out of it, it is still below the tax you have paid. So higher income person, it is always good. The good news is that those of us who have got gray hair or cemetery flowers, once you are more than 60 years, when you withdraw from your Tier 3, they have mercy on you and they don't charge you. So, and the same way, if you are employed and your employers have provident fund, please always participate in it, because invariably, in the case of the provident funds, in most cases, they may take 5 or 2.5% from you, and your employer will match it. So first of all, your contribution is not taxed, and what your employer matches it. In our place, for example, where I am a board member, it's 5%, 5%. So you have 10% of your income invested for you through the provident fund, and you don't pay a peso of tax on it. Of course, it's all subject to the Tier 3 condition. You must keep it for 10 years. But provident funds, because of the tax incentive and the fact that employers invariably make a contribution, it is the best that you can think about. And so these are some of the financial instruments that you can go to: your credit union, your call account, fixed deposit, certificates of deposits, as other people call it, corporate bond, treasury bills, government's own bonds, Tier 3 pension, and your provident fund. I will continue next week on the financial instruments. But everybody, when you are employed or you are earning money, at least 10% of your income must go into investments. The Lord be with you, and we will meet again the next time and continue with the financial instrument. You can always meet me on YouTube on the site of Emeritus Professor Stephen Adei, or 8 a.m. every Saturday on ZFM 101.9. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you.